It's Wednesday, so you know what that means, everybody. It's time for another edition of GC Live here on Gamecock Central. Kendall Smith and Jack Veltri coming at you here. And Jack, I'm excited to talk today. We had some football player availability a little bit earlier in the day, so we've got a lot to jump into. But first off, how are you?
I'm doing good, Kendall. It's been definitely busy. A lot going on. Football is in the thick of things right now for the spring. Got some basketball stuff we'll talk about here in a little bit. But yeah, doing great. How are you been doing?
I'm good. I am busy. We started baseball season officially last Friday, and the Charlotte Knights are off to a hot start, 4-0 to start the season. So really good stuff from the Knights. It's been so much fun. We have a lot of prospects on our team, so that's been exciting. Had the chance to watch a great opening weekend. Kyle Teal, who's the number 2 prospect for the White Sox, has been crushing it offensively. So it's always fun when things are going really well, and that's how it's going for the Knights right now. So I am good. Currently at the field getting ready for another game. But yeah, we're going to talk a little football. Might get into a little bit of baseball later on, and then we'll talk some basketball too. But Jack, before we do, let's give a shout out to our presenting sponsor here on GC Live.
Yep, real quick, talk to you guys about Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. So if you're in the market to, maybe you want to buy a home, maybe you're ready to take that next step, but you don't know where to begin, or maybe you're looking for help with your mortgage. Got good news for you. Clint Hammond is your guy to get in contact with. He'll take you through the process step by step and take you through it all along the way. He's been in the mortgage industry for a very long time now. He's a lifelong Gamecock fan. He's also a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central, and he's always been the presenting sponsor of our GC Live programs here. As long as I've been here, it's above me here on screen. So information to call 803-422-6797. The NMLS number for him is 71597. Or go to clinthammond.com for more info. And again, that'll be above us here on screen all show long.
My mic is muted. I mean, classic, right? You can tell I'm a little tired, right? I'm like, oh yeah, it's been a long few days, but it's been good. Okay. Hit up Clint for all of your needs when it comes to housing. He really is the best, and he has been a loyal sponsor of GC Live, of Gamecock Central for years, since I started at Gamecock Central, which was back in 2021. It's hard to believe it's been that long, almost 4 years. But yeah, Clint has always been a wonderful supporter and a great friend to Gamecock Central, so we appreciate him and all that he does. But Jack, we're starting to get into a very exciting time where we get to talk about football a little bit more. We spend all fall talking about football, and then we don't talk about it for a little bit. And now we're starting to get to talk about it a little bit more. And today we got to hear from some players, most notably Lenorris Sellers. So let's start out with that. You heard from him for a little bit here today. Obviously, really good to hear from these guys, especially with spring practice, with a lot to look forward to with the upcoming 2025 season. So what stood out to you from Lenorris today?
Yeah, I heard a lot from him today. A lot of questions were asked just because we haven't heard from him since, like the bowl game maybe. So it's been a while, and I figured we'll get to talk to him at some point this spring. Hadn't gotten to talk to him yet, and we talked to him today, and a lot of questions were asked, obviously. Just a lot of different bases to cover. One thing I did ask him today was, what is the process like of working with a new center? Because Vershawn Lee was his center last year, and now this year South Carolina's replacing Vershawn, and seems like Boaz Stanley's an early candidate to be that starting center, though obviously nothing solidified yet. Trovon Ball's worked at center. A lot of different guys have worked there, and he basically said, quote, pretty much in January, getting extra snaps, talking to him, getting to know him, meet him, stuff like that. Then just practicing, asking him what he sees when he's identifying the mic, stuff like that. So that was very interesting. Something that I've been wanting to ask him here for a little bit, just because it's very interesting what that relationship like is for the center and quarterback. It's something you probably don't think about too often. And then, he's been asked about this, I think, a few times. I think I maybe asked him this back in December, but it was brought up again today. How has life been since the Clemson game? And for him, it's, people coming up to him all the time. They're asking him for pictures, autographs. I mean, he's the most popular guy, I would say, at South Carolina right now, and for good reason. I mean, he just did so many good things last year, especially with his feet. Now that brings me into another good point here. He was asked today, what are you doing to kind of work on when you want to run versus when you have to run. And as I'm looking for the quote here, he basically just said it comes down to trusting the people around him, trusting the protection, and then being a little bit more patient and not just looking to run as like the first option. He's got to trust the receivers that they're going to get open and then throw with anticipation. And timing and footwork has been another thing that he's really been working on, and trusting his arm and knowing that he can make these throws. Because last year we saw him throw the ball pretty well, I would say. I think he's a little bit underrated as a passer, but what we do know about him is that, obviously from the Clemson game, as I mentioned before, the guy can run. He can lead you with his feet. But I think this year, knowing that it's his second year in the SEC, he got a little bit banged up last year at times because he was a little bit more of a runner. I think the goal for him this year seems to be to not have to rely so much on his legs, use him when he wants to, when he has to, but also know that, like, hey, you're going to have some good receivers out there this year, some talented guys. You can also throw to those guys when need be. And I think we're going to see a much more dynamic Lenorris Sellers this year, as if last year wasn't really enough.
Yeah, I was about to say a leveled up Lenorris Sellers. I mean, come on, he already had such a great year last year. And, we always talk about the way that people kind of gave him a harder time at the beginning of the season in 2024. And just the way he was able to bounce back from that and really show what he's capable of was beyond impressive. But it is interesting that you bring up the point of, okay, when you have to run versus when you need to run. And he talked about, trusting more of those guys. And he did talk about specifically the receivers when he was asked about it. And he said, it is a little bit different because the group is obviously younger this year. So it takes a little bit of time for them to adjust. And he said it's just something that you have to get used to. But he mentioned that they're working on it all together, just making sure those guys are good and really trying to get their confidence up. And that is a unique point about the team going into the season where things stand right now. Yes, you are going to have a receivers room that is younger, and you're going to be relying on a lot of these guys that are not veteran players. And I think a certain part of that is very exciting, right? Because you do have this young, fresh talent that's hungry. But also, if you're Lenorris Sellers, he's right. It is about using this time here in spring practice to really up the confidence, up the chemistry, obviously, between your quarterback and your receiver. So I thought that was an interesting point because he is saying, yeah, it's about being able to trust the people around me so I don't feel like I have to run out of every situation that comes up. But he's also trying to build that trust. And I think that's a really important aspect of this spring practice period.
For sure. Look, Lenorris is the heart and soul of the offense, right? He is really what makes the engine go. However, it's an 11-man offense. Every guy matters on that offense. South Carolina is replacing 3 interior offensive linemen, the 2 guards, and then the center, as I mentioned before. And as I said, the center-quarterback relationship is massive. And that's why I think we saw so much success last year with Vershawn Lee as that starter. And then you mentioned the receivers. South Carolina didn't necessarily have a wide receiver 1 last year. It was definitely a lot more by committee, I guess you could say. A lot more guys kind of just stepping up as the year went on. Saw some real flashes. I think the most consistent guy wasn't even a receiver. It was Josh Simon, the tight end, who led the team in receiving last year. Very good player. And then we saw Nick Harbor kind of step up as the year went on. Mazeo Bennett had a pretty good year. Saw flashes from guys like Jared Brown, Vandrevius Jacobs, Dale Von Campbell, who's no longer here, came along as the year went on, especially in the last few games. So it was a lot more of everyone doing their part, and that is what I think we're going to see again this year. And he doesn't have a Rocket Sanders in the running back room, but he's very high on the guys in that room like Oscar Attaway, Rasul Faison, even the younger guys like Matthew Fuller and Jawarn Howell, and Howell we spoke to today as well. So there's a lot of different pieces that go into this offense, but South Carolina in reality goes, I think, as far as Lenorris takes them. And what he can do with his legs, it's special. We saw him basically carry South Carolina to a victory over our rival Clemson last year. We've seen this before where he's made these magical plays that, like, not everyone makes, and that's why people are so high on him. So, yes, Lenorris is the main focal point of this offense, but none of it matters if he doesn't have receivers to throw to, if he doesn't have good blocking up front. I think he's going to have those things for sure this year. I think he had pretty good blocking towards the end of the last year. And then receivers, we're going to see more guys step up. especially some of these younger guys that are getting good looks in the spring here.
Yeah, we even saw that with a guy like Spencer Rattler, right? Like struggles at times for him because he wasn't always getting necessarily what he needed from the offensive line. So when you do have everything working all together as one, it's obviously critical for a successful offense. And something that Lenorris also said about those receivers that stood out to me with the younger guys is he said they are just willing to work. And even with them being young, they don't shy away from anything, which I think is really important when you think about the way that these guys are being asked to step up in this situation and become big time players for this South Carolina offense, despite their age, despite how young they are. They're being asked to step up, but he's saying, yeah, no, they're not afraid of that. Like, they're not going to shy away from it. They're going to go for it. And I think that's obviously exactly what you want if you're Shane Beamer, if you're Lenorris Sellers. So really good stuff from Lenorris. And I loved the quote that he said people are coming up to him all the time and asking for autographs and asking for pictures. I mean, he is the star. He is the face of the South Carolina football team. And he deserves it all because he's a great kid. He's awesome. I mean, we've covered him since he was in high school being recruited to South Carolina, but he really does deserve all of his shine, all of his flowers, because he was just phenomenal for South Carolina. I can't wait to see what he does this year. If we, like I said, if we get a leveled up Lenorris Sellers, everybody watch out. His name is being circled around in the Heisman conversation preseason a little bit. So who knows?
Yeah. I mean, the hype is definitely real, and he's managed it very well so far, and we'll see how it looks during the season and whatnot. But very excited about him. And, you know, we heard from a lot of different guys today. And, you know, Lenorris was obviously the main guy that we spoke to today. But I think some other just real quick notes here that kind of stood out. Nick Barrett we spoke to today. And, Kendall, he's the main returner on the defensive line because, I mean, they've lost so many guys on that defensive line. Tonka Hemingway, Boogie Huntley, TJ Sanders, DeAndre Jules. I mean, this defensive line was scarce before the transfer portal opened. And Nick is that main guy that's back this year. And it's interesting because he redshirted last year. That was more so like a hand-in-hand decision, as he put it. And he kind of said it was boring last year, seeing the guys do so well, and he had to redshirt. And he's really excited for this year. He feels like he's going to be a critical piece of the team this season, and I do believe it. And there's another guy in that room that could very well be the same case with Monkel Goodwine, who, you know, is the other guy that's coming back this year alongside Barrett. And they've got a lot of good pieces coming in. So very excited to see what those guys do. We also heard a little bit from DQ Smith today, Jatavius Shivers, and as I mentioned before, Jawarn Howell. So lots of good stuff today, but obviously Nick Barrett being the main besides Nick Barrett, I would say Lenorris Sellers being the main standout today.
Yeah, if you all want to get the specific quotes, exactly what these guys were saying, then head over to GamecockCentral.com. Jack did a forum insiders post, insiders forum post. Yeah,
there's live updates and stuff.
Live updates. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Forum post. An insiders forum post. Y'all, I'm tired. I don't drink coffee either, so I'm going on like, what is this?
Fumes.
Game 5 out of 6 days. So we're rocking with it. It's all good. But yes, I meant to say an insiders forum post over on GamecockCentral.com. So go check that out. We talked about this actually a couple times, Jack, on the show. Just what do you want to see from South Carolina in terms of what they may go after transfer portal wise when that, comes to fruition? So what do you want to see? We've talked about it, but I think it is worth reiterating.
Yeah, we have talked about it before, but I will definitely reiterate it here. You know, I do want to see because again, we've only seen this team practice now for the media twice, and tomorrow will be the third time we see them. So we'll have a lot of stuff on Gamecock Central about that. But I will say, you know, I want to see more tomorrow. Obviously, we're going to be out there for more periods from what I've been told. And then, the spring game, want to see what they really have out there because we haven't really had to see them like too much in depth in terms of 11. Heck, we haven't even seen 11 on 11 yet. Just things like that to really get a sense of where things are at. But it does seem like maybe we'll see how the specialist battle goes. Shane Beamer was briefly asked about that the other day and had some good things to say about guys sticking out and stuff. I did say before the D-line is another position. Maybe they go out and find a guy. But it just really depends on what's out there, I think, is number one. Because if nothing's out there, then what are you really getting out of that? But if there's a really talented player out there that you just feel like you have to have, you're going to go out and get him. But I think maybe a receiver, if you really feel like you need one, defensive line help is always good. Anywhere on the defense, quite honestly, even at the linebacker and secondary positions, would help out a lot. I mean, even in the secondary, DQ Smith was asked about all the guys that are coming in, and they got to fill Nicky Manwari's spot. That's a tough void to fill, and they have a lot of options there. But if they're just not cutting it to the level of what they need, maybe you go out and look in the secondary too. So a lot of different options out there, I would say, of positions that they can target. But I feel pretty good about where South Carolina is at right now. Again, I just want to see more of what they're doing when we get to see them in practice, and then the spring game here in about 2 weeks.
Certainly looking forward to the spring game, looking forward to what you will have tomorrow coverage-wise from that open practice for South Carolina football. So again, head over to GamecockCentral.com. Check it out. Jack is fantastic when it comes to giving you the inside scoop and letting you know everything that he sees there. So I'm always watching from Charlotte, and I highly recommend keeping up with him and all that he is going to be posting tomorrow for sure. Jack, we'll have plenty more football to talk about here, but we do have to get into some basketball here in just a second. But before we do, let's talk about our next sponsor here on the show.
Yep. Going to talk to you guys real quick about Prize Picks. So in case you don't know, Prize Picks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in all of North America. They're the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just you against the numbers. So instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And then, of course, watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks has quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. It's what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. I've used Prize Picks before plenty in the past, as you guys know by now if you've listened for long enough. There's baseball going on, obviously, right now. Basketball, Final Four this weekend. You got NBA, hockey. I mean, the options are really just endless. So if you're interested, just go to prizepicks.com or download the Prize Picks app. Use the code on screen, GC, that stands for Gamecock Central, to receive a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineups.
There we go. Jack, how we feeling at the start of baseball season?
Feeling pretty good so far. Yankees are doing pretty well. There's been a lot of news so far in the MLB. The torpedo bats, guys getting suspended. I mean, it's been crazy. But yeah, the Yankees are off to a good start. And how are you feeling about your baseball season? You're a Cubs fan, right?
Well, I work for the White Sox AAA team.
That's true.
We got the White Sox that we're watching. They won a couple games, so that's exciting. And the torpedo bats, yes, are taking the world by storm right now. Let us know what you think, everybody, about the torpedo bats. I mean, it's been crazy, but it's fun to watch the coverage the baseball is getting right now. This is always the most exciting time of the season for baseball, obviously, besides playoffs in October, because people are excited about their teams. They're feeling jazzed up. They're ready to go for the season. So looking forward to what baseball season has in store this year. Excited about hockey playoffs coming up. It's a great time right now.
Very busy.
I always say that October is the best time for sports, and I will stand by this 100% because everything's going on at that point. So hockey's just getting started. You're in the middle of NFL season. You're in the middle of college football. Obviously, you've got NBA that has started, and you've got baseball that's in the playoffs. So I think October is the best time, but I think outside of October, this is close. It's just too bad that football's obviously not going on right now. So there's still a lot going on, which I love in the sports world. But Jack, we're going to talk a little basketball here on the show. First, I want to start with the women's team. They got a big game coming up on Friday against Texas. I'm excited about this one, Jack. How are you feeling?
It's going to be a really interesting game. I think here's an interesting scenario, Kendall. All the teams that are in the Final Four have beaten South Carolina at least once this year. And it's definitely crazy to think about. I don't know how often that has ever really happened. And again, I think it just speaks to South Carolina scheduling these really tough teams throughout the year. Non-conference play. Obviously, SEC, you got to play everybody. But Carolina's played Texas 3 times this year. And this will be their 4th meeting this season. And The Gamecocks have won 2 of those meetings. They won most recently in the SEC championship game. And they also won back here in Columbia a few months ago in that middle game playing at Texas. They lost, and then the coin flip too. Do you really want to count that? So this will be the 4th time they're meeting this year. It's always interesting when Dawn Staley and Vic Schaefer meet, especially in the postseason, since Dawn has really owned Vic even when he was at Mississippi State before coming to Texas. Very interesting game on Friday. I wonder how things will look. I know Vic complained about the fact that the crowd situation in Greenville was very South Carolina heavy, though Texas fans did show up. I wonder how it's going to look from a standpoint of this is in Tampa. So both teams, I'm sure some South Carolina fans are going to fly to that game. Others may drive since it's about like a 7-8 hour ride. But Texas fans, they're probably flying. So going to be interested to see how that looks. But I mean, look, this team has played some really tight games so far in the tournament. They've played close games against Indiana, Maryland, a little bit of a scare against Duke having to come back in that game, but they've won at the end of the day. And it doesn't matter if you win ugly. As long as you win, that's all that matters. And I really do think these are going to be – if they make it to the national championship game, these are going to be 2 really tough games because if you have to play UCLA or UConn, that's going to be probably a bigger challenge than Texas is, even though you've already played them so often this year. So looking forward to Friday, and we'll see if they can get back to the championship game and further defend their title.
A win is a win is a win is a win is a win. So it doesn't matter how you win. If it's a win, it's a win. South Carolina plays at 7 o'clock on Friday against Texas in the Final Four. Certainly looking forward to it. And obviously Dawn Staley knows what it takes to win. So excited to see what her and the group were able to do against Texas on Friday. Obviously hoping to punch their ticket to the national championship. We'll have a ton of coverage on GamecockCentral.com. So check it out. Women's team is continuing to cruise. The men's team is trying to put a little something together after a
rebuild, I guess.
Yeah, a little rebuilding moment for the men's program right now with the transfer portal open. Michi Johnson is going to be back in Garnet and Black next season. That was a little bit of a shock. We heard that a few days ago. South Carolina continuing to make moves in the portal and recently getting actually a commitment here today, which is exciting. So, Jack, what have been your thoughts so far on the way that South Carolina has been able to work the portal in men's basketball?
Well, we knew even from the moment the season ended, their work was going to be cut out for them. I've always thought there's just no way they can possibly run it back with the same group next year. That's just not logical. Like, you can try, but you're going to get a lot of the same results because you went 2-16 in the SEC. Obviously, there were problems. And I think we're seeing Lamont Paris and company kind of address those problems, even though, I mean, look, we probably said the same thing last year when they brought in different transfers. They add Cam Scott from the high school ranks, flipping him from Texas, and it just didn't work out the way you expected. But I like what they've got so far. They've obviously brought in a lot of guard play, Trayson Eaglestaff being the main standout here from North Dakota. I mean, you look at his numbers, he was excellent out there last year, and he's a guy that dropped 40-plus points against Alabama last year. That's a team that is very good, as we all know, in the SEC. One of the best teams in college basketball. I know they got eliminated in the Elite Eight by Duke, but very good team that Eaglestaff went up against and balled out. That wasn't even his best game this year. I mean, he had a 51-point game earlier this season. So I know Gamecock fans look at the numbers and they are clamoring for something like that. They want a scorer. Bringing Michi Johnson in, not that it was a huge surprise. I think this was something that when he entered the portal, and honestly, I didn't even know initially when he was just out for about half the season here, more than half, because he hadn't played for Ohio State since December. I was kind of like, I don't know if he's going to end up being back. Like, I don't know if he's going to end up having another year to where he can transfer or whatever, but that seems to be the case, and he'll be back next year, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him back. He's a guy that he was here at South Carolina for 2 years, did a lot of great things. He's an all-SEC guard, led the team in scoring 2 seasons ago. The one thing I will say is I still feel like they need a complementary piece at point guard. We saw what Talon Cooper meant to this team when they won 26 games with Michi at the 2, Talon at the point, and then you had BJ Mack at the 3, and Colin Murray-Boyles out there at the 4, and so forth. I wonder what they're going to do from a point guard standpoint, because I still feel like you could have Michi at the point, but he's a scoring guard after all. You want someone that is the floor general, like a Talon Cooper was. You're not going to find Talon Cooper to a T out there in the portal, but you can at least go look and hunt for someone that very well can replicate what he did so well for you last year. So they got a lot of scoring. And then today, obviously, they added, just probably about like an hour ago here officially, they added Kobe Knox from South Florida, who will spend his final year of college basketball within the Gamecock uniform. So he's someone that averaged over 10 points per game at USF last year. He did it on, I believe, 44% shooting from the field and 33.1% from three-point range. So he's someone that I think can definitely provide a lot of experience, number one, since he played in 65 games with 55 starts. And he was a guy that was at Grand Canyon before that. So, and then you got Eason Doko from Providence, who is going to be the main front court piece that you've brought in so far. 7 feet tall, almost 300 pounds. He's someone that has 2 years of eligibility left. I know the numbers didn't really stick out when he was at Providence, but the guy could actually shoot a little bit when he was at St. Joe's 2 years ago, shooting, I believe, over 30% from three-point range a little bit. So I know Wes Mitchell kind of made the comparison that he's like a BJ Mack type player. We'll see what it looks like, what that looks like. We'll see if he starts this year. Again, that's discussions that can be had later on, because I don't think they're done yet. I think they're still going to go out there and get more. Heck, is Colin Murray-Boyles going to come back? You know, what does that look like? So a lot to break down with this team. They've obviously lost some guys too that we can talk about here too if you want, Kendall. But so far, so good. A lot of good pieces that you brought in, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, Jack, my favorite question to ask you when it comes to the transfer portal always, and I asked you this with football as well, even though we're not done yet, there still could be more for South Carolina basketball, is how would you grade the way that they have done to this point in the transfer portal?
Yeah, just based on what these guys have done before coming to Carolina. And again, this is all without knowing what they're going to do this upcoming season. But I can tell you, like, it just looks like they've got the guys that are significant upgrades to what they had before, right? Eagle Staff is a big-time scorer that you need, and that is what you're going to get. He's a 6'6" wing. So that's something that I like seeing. And he's also got, like, him and Kobe Knox both have experience, and so does Michi. So you're bringing in guys that have experience, and they're also, from what it looks like, you're going to have a lot of guys that can shoot the rock on this team. That is something that you had opportunities to shoot the ball a ton last year outside of Colin Murray-Boyles, who would create a lot of open looks for guys, but they just couldn't hit shots. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed, and I feel like they have done that. Michi's a guy that, as we all know, a little bit streaky. He's going to have games where he can just, like when he went to Rupp 3 years ago and helped South Carolina beat Kentucky, he can shoot the lights out. Then I also remember a lot of games his second year with the program where he would go, I think there was a game maybe against like Missouri or something where he had like an 0 for 10, 0 for 11 game. So there are moments where Michi is streaky, but he's a very good guard. Like, I just don't think you can complain about the fact of bringing him back. Why not? He's a good player. Eason Doko, I do wonder, because he only averaged like 4.5 points at Providence, and that doesn't tell the whole picture. He didn't play a ton there either, like 15 minutes a game. But I feel like you still need someone in that front court, because it's not just Colin Murray-Boyles you have to think about potentially losing. You don't have Nick Pringle coming back. You don't have Benjamin Bozeman-Verdonk coming back. As of right now, just based on guys that are in the portal, guys that haven't like officially made it like completely known yet what they're doing. I mean, you could have Jordan Butler back. He made it clear he wants to be back. And then Oku Federico, a guy that joined the program a little bit late this year and didn't play in any games, but he practiced with the team for well over about a month and a half. So you really need another guy in the front court. And if it's not CMB, got to go out and get someone. And we will see ultimately what Colin does. I don't think anyone really knows for sure what he's going to do. It's just been very quiet on that front. But
what is your gut feel?
Before bringing Michi back, and I know obviously the whole Miles Studi thing yesterday with him posting that tweet about running it back and stuff. We will see what that does look like, because that could mean he's either coming back or it means he's very excited about Michi. Who is to say officially? We will find that out very soon, I'm sure. But it does seem like they're getting the band back together to some extent. Bringing Michi back is a huge piece. I feel like that's got to entice Colin a little bit, that this team is going to be getting a lot better, hopefully, for next year. And I don't think they're done. So I initially would have said, like, right after the season ended, oh, he's not coming back. I don't know. Like, this is more just gut feel than anything. I feel like it's not as cut and dry as, he's going to the draft. He's obviously going to be a potential first-round pick, probably. Maybe a lottery pick. Who knows? But there's a lot to be excited about with this team. And I think, it came out earlier this week that Lamont Paris said on SiriusXM that an SEC team offered him $2.5 million. That's an NCAA tournament team that offered Colin that much money. Obviously, that probably seems like what it would take to bring him back. Do you do that? And if he wants, does he want to come back? That's the main thing. And if he does, you give him what he wants. But I don't know. I don't know what he'll do, honestly. It's not as certain, I would say, that he's going pro-bound. We'll find out for sure what happens here relatively soon, because he's got to make a decision here in the coming weeks. But I wouldn't be shocked if he came back, to be honest.
A lot still to be learned about the South Carolina men's basketball team, but the big thing is they are making some moves in the transfer portal, so that is good. You knew after this season and just what they went through and the final result that something needed to change. So South Carolina trying to find that change here, and that's, obviously where you have to start if you're Lamont Paris leading this group. So again, head over to GamecockCentral.com. We'll have all the updates there for you with the transfer portal, what's happening with this team, who's going where. It's a crazy time right now in men's basketball, which is very exciting. We'll just see what happens. It's a good thing that South Carolina is trying to make some changes, because it was a disappointing season. And you know what this group can do. And you saw what Lamont Paris did in his first year with the team. So, again, success isn't always linear. You see ups, you see downs. Shane Beamer's first year, a little bit better than the second year, but came back and, obviously doing a good thing for the South Carolina football program right now. So we'll see what happens. But again, all of this to say, just stay updated with everything that Jack has going on, what we've got going on over on GamecockCentral.com, and follow us on social media as well at Gamecock Central. I have a game to go do, so I'm going to get out of here and go get ready for that. More baseball to look forward to. Baseball team won yesterday.
They did. Ended a 7-game losing streak. So big series this weekend at Mississippi State. And we'll have all coverage for you on Gamecock Central. The same deal with all the basketball coverage. I mean, Kevin Miller, Wes, they've been doing a great job over there. And obviously football with Chris and Wes and myself, everybody over there doing a great job. So lots to look forward to on Gamecock Central, I would say.
Yeah, it's a busy time right now. Football has an open practice tomorrow, so stay on the lookout for all of that. That's always good stuff that the group is able to get out there. So check that out, GamecockCentral.com. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining us here on GC Live. It's fun, as always. This is a highlight of the week for sure. So we appreciate each and every one of you. Have an amazing day. Have an amazing week. For Jack Veltri, I am Kendall Smith. This has been GC Live here on Gamecock Central, and we will see you soon.